All right. So, good morning, everyone. This is Dennis Lee. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Hong Kong Association of Southern California. On behalf of HKASC, welcome to our webinar this morning. Okay, we're going to go through some agendas and housekeeping first. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk about current hot topics in the shadow of COVID-19 and also the support services for trading and business and services in personal banking and finance in the US and Hong Kong. All right, and the Q&A, I'm going to go back to the screen. Bear with me for a second. Okay, so the next screen is going to be housekeeping announcements. So the webinar will be recorded for sharing in Hong Kong Association of Southern California website. The first 30 minutes is panel talk, and followed by 15 minutes Q&A. Please send in your questions at your own will and discretion and in the chat panel. So, of course, we have to express our special thanks to our sponsor, Hong Kong Trade Development Council. So thank you very much for supporting us. And I'm going to share with you the cartoon. Yep, believe it or not, we are definitely in a very new age right now. Everything is very, very unique. And let's move on to the next cartoon. Yep, this is our new normal. So it's going to be ups and downs, as we know. We have been quote unquote in the stay-at-home orders for the last 5 months, and we can see that there's a lot of ups and downs. So without further ado, and I'm going to introduce our panelists. Our first speaker is Mr. Ralph Chow, who is the Regional Director, Americas of Hong Kong Trade Development Council. And Hong Kong TDC is the trade promotion party for Hong Kong that brings business opportunities to the small and medium enterprises, SMEs, around the world. Our second speaker is Mr. Malcolm McNeil, the partner of Aaron Fox LLP. He is a partner in the law firm, Aaron Fox LLP, and is also an international co-leader for the West Coast, Los Angeles and San Francisco, quite a broad area. And also he represents diverse clients in inbound and I think there's outbound transactional, regulatory, and litigation area. And the first speaker is David Presley, the premier mortgage consultant of HSBC Bank USA. I'm sure everyone knows HSBC has the capacity to provide home financing solutions that meet our clients' needs in the US and abroad. And also I'd like to introduce Ms. Ki-Yu Zhang, Premier Relationship Manager of HSBC Bank USA. And HSBC, as you know, is a global bank that exists in 64 countries and offers international services to clients around the world. And last but not least, yes, I hope that I still look like the picture that has been taken about a number of years ago. So I am the managing director of my boutique accounting firms. I was the past president. Also, I'm serving as the Orange County chapter chair, and I'm serving as the panel moderator today. I have the pleasure to do that. So we dedicate undivided personal attention to our clients with international resources. All right, so I am going to go over whatever we're going to go, the topics today. So let's move on to the next slide. So we are going to talk about the current hot topic in the shadow of COVID-19. Well, shadow, as we know, there's a dark area when light is blocked. So when we always talk about shadows, we always have a little bit negative feeling. Is it bad or is it good? But I'm going to take a different point of view. Well, if there's a shadow, that means there's also a presence of light, and we're not totally in the dark. So I'm going to share with you my thoughts. It's like, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We cannot do that anymore. This is a totally different world. So to deal with the shadow of COVID-19 and evolving challenges, so it's time to get out of our comfort zone. I know it's tough, and think outside the box. So with the second topic we're going to talk about is support services from private sector. We have the banks, we have the attorneys, we have the CPA, and also we have the government sectors, Hong Kong Trade Development Council, Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office, they will guide us along to find the light at the end of the tunnel. So ultimately, I strongly believe that our persistent efforts shall be all pay off. And let's move on to the next slide. And we will defeat our villain, the COVID-19. All right, so let's move on to the first sharing by Mr. Ralph Chow. He's going to talk about the update on Hong Kong economic environment. So please, Chow, Ralph, please.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. I'll show you my PowerPoint. Well, basically, the Hong Kong Trade Development Council is a trade promotion body for Hong Kong. During the pandemic of the COVID-19, we continue to provide our trade services, particularly targeting the small and medium enterprises. So we hope that our trade services will be able to help you get out of the shadow of the COVID-19. Well, in fact, international trade is very important to employment and also to the economy. For example, in the US, nearly 40 million jobs are based on trade, and that constitutes about 20% of the total employment in the US. For the bilateral trade between Hong Kong and the US, although the volume may not be great, but then Hong Kong is a very important trading partner for the US because we contributed the largest trade surplus for the US, amounting to over 30 billion a year for product trade and another 2 to 3 billion US dollars in terms of services trade. Of course, most of the people are affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. For example, for the Hong Kong exporters, we had conducted a survey earlier this year, and over 90% of them, they said their business had been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of different areas, for example, including logistics, supply of labor after the Chinese New Year, because a lot of the workers, they were not able to return to the factory. And then the business relationships between the exporters and also the buyers, because they were not able to meet with each other. And of course, the supply of raw materials would also be affected. As for the US companies operating in China, the AmCham in China, they also conducted a survey, and they found that 50% of the respondents, they experienced significant revenue decline, and nearly 40% of them reported a drop in the demand for their products. About 60% of them, they expected that the 2020 China revenues will be affected if the business could not return to normal before April. So that means this had already happened. And 60% of them said that their revenue would decline between 10 to 50% if the business could not return to normal before August 30. So that means that all these are happening. As for Hong Kong's total trade, it of course was affected by the pandemic. In general, it decreased by 8 to 9% in terms of its total export, re-export, or import. And for the air cargo in Hong Kong, Hong Kong is the largest air cargo hub in the world, handling about 5 million tons of air cargo every year. Although at the beginning of the pandemic, the air cargo throughput dropped significantly, it gradually picked up again, and now we are almost back to normal. So Hong Kong continues to be a major air cargo hub of the world. In terms of the container throughput, we are maintaining at about 18 million 20-feet containers a year. Although we also encounter some decrease, but in general, Hong Kong's role as a major container port in the world remains unchanged. So that is a very brief illustration on the situation of Hong Kong amid the pandemic. So I'll go with, through some other slides with you later on. So back to you, Dennis.
Okay, thanks, Ralph, for sharing your update on the Hong Kong economic environment with us. We are going to bring you our second speaker, Mr. Malcolm McNeil. So I'm sure that you're getting a lot of calls this day from your clients, and So basically, what should they consider when they make decisions in their businesses? So Malcolm, can you share with us?
Sure. Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you, Dennis. And in consideration of your theme of in the shadow, that is also meaning there is light. In the first couple of months, all we were doing was damage control. Clients asking advice on, do they have to pay a bill? Do they have to pay their rent? Do they have to pay their employees? Can they lay them off? All of those emergency decisions. But now that that emergency time has passed, we do have a lot of light. I'm involved now. Clients are starting to re-up their investment strategies. They're looking at, we're seeing an uptick in real estate transactions, technology transactions, and somewhat to Ralph's point, to the in the consumer goods industry, people are looking to buy. That may sound odd because all of the buying habits haven't all started to go back to normal, but what's happened is people are looking for bargains. And so that's the biggest challenge that we're facing these days. Transactions are taking a little bit longer because if a seller is not financially distressed and is just trying to get out of the business or move some assets, they are wanting to proceed to a transaction, and getting the fair market value price is a little bit harder. It used to be a little bit easier with two appraisals, and they would fight and haggle and finally mediate at a particular price. These days, the buyers are looking for bargains and the sellers are looking to the future, trying to up the value of the business. So what we're finding is that there's a more protracted negotiation process, and that negotiation process is also requiring more of a due diligence process. People are looking at where are things going to go, what is the prognostication for the given business. So I've been advising clients on how to take those factors into account to decide what is the actual fair market value in this market, with the past volatility and the future projections of where the business is going to go. It obviously depends on where the business is, what the purpose of the transaction is, the synergies between the buyer and the marketplace and their existing business. And so what we're seeing is that what I'm advising clients is, don't rush into the transaction. Get some appropriate due diligence. Make sure you've internally discussed it among your C-level employees and perhaps with the board, depending upon what it is. And especially if it's cross-border. If it's a cross-border transaction, we're asking everybody to look at what the marketplace is like overseas. Look at and if there's financing involved in the transaction, we want to make sure that the buyer, in fact, has the financial capability to sustain, say, a protracted purchase price over a given time frame, or if they're going to exchange shares for part of the purchase price. We want to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the buyer to make sure that the buyer has the sustainability to keep its commitments under the sale and purchase agreement. And a lot of this has to do with labor relations, which we'll talk about later, because the issue of employees and who's going to be still surviving thereafter and what the business plan is going to be, those are questions that I force the business owners to think about. I don't make those decisions for them, but I sort of ask the pertinent questions so that they are taking into consideration where they're going to go in the future.
All right. Thanks, Malcolm. I
You're
changed
welcome.
the backdrop for you. So basically, I'm sure you know what this place is. So
Yes.
and also I have the pleasure to introduce you our first speaker, David. And I know that you're going to share with us the mortgage market overview. Believe it or not, that I've read about the news, the real estate market is still on the rise. So what's going on out there? So David, can you share with us?
Sure thing. Thank you for the introduction, Dennis. And thank you everyone for taking some time out of your day today to join us. And I just wanted to give kind of a quick, brief overview of where we are currently with where the mortgage market is and where the real estate market is, as everyone knows, with the pandemic, has been vastly affected. However, I can say that the purchase and refinance markets are definitely vibrant right now. Rates are still at a rather historic low. I hate using the word historic because I feel like that gets tossed around so much. However, they are still at a very attractive low, and especially for the purchase market. The purchase market is very hot, as it usually is right now in the summertime. However, with that, there's limitations that have been coming through with COVID that have kind of affected financing, where we're seeing some lower loan-to-value restrictions that are in place, primarily with the higher loan-to-value purchase transactions, where we're not going to go up to 90%. Not a lot of lenders are going up that high right now until everything starts to subside with COVID. The other impact is definitely on investment property purchases, where we're seeing loan-to-value restrictions on those as well. Other restrictions in relation to COVID are definitely with employment verifications. There's extra due diligence that's being taken into consideration to make sure that people are still employed, that they're still earning their income throughout the entire process. Because of what has happened with COVID and a lot unfortunate circumstances of a lot of people losing their jobs, we have to do a little extra due diligence to make sure that that is still intact and in place. So we know rightfully that someone qualifies for the loan, because we don't want to put someone into a bad position. And the other piece is also the appraisal piece. Obviously, that's the interaction piece where people are face to face. So the industry has kind of taken a big change, where a lot of appraisals are being done as a drive-by basis, where we're not having that interaction where people are coming into people's homes and having that connection where there could be the potential of any of the virus spread. So a lot has changed with the mortgage industry, and I think the landscape is going to continue to change until things start to subside with COVID, but it's kind of an evolving process. And as you know, the government restrictions are in place and lifted, we kind of are moving as fluid as possible with all of those changes.
All right, thanks, David, for sharing the the mortgage market overview. Yeah, is sometimes you expected the real estate market, will crash or the price will drop, and this is not the case as we see. So I am going to introduce the last but not least the speaker, Ki Yu, and she is the Premier Relationship Manager. And I have the pleasure to work with the Premier Relationship Managers in the US and Hong Kong. So I know that, things have changed so much. So how are you going to deal with all those COVID pandemic and the impact on the private banking? So can you share with us, Ki Yu?
Hi, Dennis. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking time to join us today. As we all know, COVID-19 pandemic could be the most serious challenge to all financial institutions. And this pandemic forced people and business to work differently. And HSBC was able to react quickly and help our customers do banking more efficiently. So today I would like to quickly talk about what did we do for customers and how do we do that during the pandemic. So first of all, we are helping customers through the pandemic. HSBC has provided around $80 billion in support to customers globally to help them cope with the impact of the pandemic. This includes over $27 billion in relief through 700,000 payment holidays on loans, credit cards, and mortgages to help personal lending customers manage their finances. And HSBC also help customers meet their funding and liquidity needs. Second, we are providing a continuous service. Making sure customers can access their money safely during this difficult time is crucial. We have maintained a high level of business continuity throughout the crisis. All of our customer contact center have remained fully operational. We work to keep branch channel open to ensure customers who need to visit two local branches in person can do so safely. This include social distancing, regular cleaning, and providing access to hand sanitizers. Last but not least, we are helping customers bank remotely. The pandemic has made it even more important for people to be able to bank remotely. That's why we have continued to enhance our digital capabilities, offer customers faster access, and improved security. HSBC has increased our ATM and mobile deposit limits for customers during the pandemic, and also enhanced our digital capabilities to help customers with doing banking services remotely. And most importantly, We have our direct team and our international banking center who help clients open US accounts and even foreign accounts remotely over the phone. This helps customers who would like to start a relationship with HSBC but don't feel comfortable to visit a local branch in person right now, and also help customers who need to set up a foreign account now but couldn't travel to the foreign country at this special time. Customers can access a broader range of banking products and services from their homes, which help our customers greatly on a daily basis. So HSBC focused on these three themes: securing a continuous service for all customers who rely on us, providing a financial bridge for our personal and business customers beyond the crisis, and ensure that HSBC retain the strengths to help our customers thrive once restriction begin to ease. During the pandemic, our measurement of our performance become our success in supporting our customers, and we will continue to provide highest level service to our customers and help them fulfill their financial needs during the pandemic. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing your reactions and all those solutions that you have for your private banking clients. So our thanks to all the panelists for the first round of sharing. And now we are moving on to the topic number 2, the support services. So what I would like to do is to bring back Mr. Ralph Chow, who is going to talk about the support services available for small and medium businesses and for connecting buyers and sellers through the virtual platform of HKDDC. Ralph, please.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. I'm going to make use of the second part of the PowerPoint. Well, of course, during the pandemic, a lot of the businesses have been affected, but somehow some of the companies, they are able to experience very good business during the pandemic. And I'm going to show you a few examples. First of all, in terms of the logistics and delivery services, there is a unicorn in Hong Kong called GoGoVan. They are specialized in logistics services. And during the pandemic, they provide the delivery service, particularly for those who are home locked, but then they still need to have food and also necessities. So GoGoVan provide them such service, and they are enjoying very good business during the pandemic. And of course, you can expect e-commerce marketplaces, they are also enjoying excellent businesses. A company in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong TV Mall, they are providing the online purchase platform. And at one time, when the facial masks were in short supply, they were able to sell the facial masks through their online platform. So they had drawn a lot of attention. And as a result of that, their business during this year had been increased tremendously. For healthcare, there are a number of technology companies that are enjoying very good business. For example, Avalon Biomedical Limited, they supply the vaporized hydrogen peroxide sanitizing robot for the subway system in Hong Kong to have the automatic deep cleaning disinfection throughout all the train compartments. And as a result of that, I think they are enjoying very good business. Another company called Companion Technology, they deliver the location-based solutions to help people undergo the quarantine in Hong Kong, because those who undergo quarantine cannot leave their home. So that's why they have to be monitored by their wristbands incorporated with this technology. Well, during the pandemic, we are able to provide a lot of online services. We make use of our data bank, which consists of 130,000 companies from the supplying side, and also more than 2 million companies as buyers throughout the world. So we are able to provide customized business matching service for these buyers and suppliers. As a result of that, we are able to successfully connect a lot of the buyers and suppliers together so that they can continue to have a business negotiation among themselves. On the other hand, we also provide the online advertising for exporters worldwide on our tvc.com sourcing platform. For this year, of course, under the pandemic, we are not able to organize any international trade fairs. Most of them have been postponed or even turned into virtual trade fairs. For example, the Film Mart, which is a trade fair for the international film and also TV market. Originally, it was scheduled in March this year, but it has now been postponed to August. And even in August, we are not able to organize the physical trade show, so we turn it into virtual. Actually, it starts today. So anyone who is interested in this Film Mart, you can go to our website and take a look at it online. And you can also have some business matching meetings with some of those exhibitors at the show. On the other hand, many of our product trade fairs, they have been canceled this year. So we are combining the various trade fairs this year into an autumn sourcing week online. Again, this is a virtual trade fair and it will be held in November from 16th to 27th. For those who are interested in looking for supplying sources, you are most welcome to take a look at it. And last time we organized the summer sourcing week, and we were able to draw more than 1,300 exhibitors together with more than 13,000 buyers. More importantly, we also organized more than 4,000 business matching meetings for them. So this is the contact address of our Los Angeles office. So anyone who is interested in our trade services, they are most welcome to contact our colleagues at the LA office. So that's all what I want to share with the audience. Back to you, Dennis.
Okay, great. Ralph, it's great to know that, you guys are still working hard. There's an old saying that, when the goings get tough, the tough gets going. So thank you for sharing it. And I'm going to bring Malcolm back. And again, as we all know that you are Bonds fans, so I changed the backdrop for you. So, yeah. So you're going to talk about the hot topic and economic issues in the shadow of COVID-19, and also how do our clients really, how do they really cope with it? How do they really survive in this kind of environment? Can you share with us?
Sure, I'd be happy to. But first, let me give a shout out to Ralph and the HKTDC, because I am registered for Film Mart, Ralph, and I'm going to tell you that I've already had two meetup meetings, and I'm based in LA, as you know, LA and San Francisco. So, but despite what we're hearing about the closures of the theaters, et cetera, business still goes on. And the website and the virtual environment has been effortless to get involved in. So we've all been communicating, although not in face-to-face as we used to in Hong Kong, but nonetheless the second best thing, I guess. So a shout out to HKTDC on that. And one other comment, Ralph's initial comments talked about 94% of the businesses were affected by COVID-19. From my perspective, that's even a surprising statistic, because I would say 100% if anybody ever asked me, because it's hard to imagine in my seat as a lawyer, anyone not being affected by COVID-19 to one degree or another. So 6% of those respondents were quite, let's say, optimistic or perhaps oblivious to what was going on. The biggest challenges that people are having today is getting back to normal. I mean, and most of these issues revolve around the labor and employment arena, because clients have started to have people working remotely. People have gotten used to working remotely. Employment, we're starting to see in the very beginning, everybody was very diligent to work, and now we're seeing productivity taper off. So as productivity tapers off, how does an employer deal with the employees if they have 250 employees, as with one of my clients who's in the technology business, and they have and they're an essential business, but they've allowed about 150 employees to work from home. And so you have open ticket items, et cetera, and sluggishness in getting back to the customers and et cetera. So how do you manage that? How do you create an HR position that's going to be both recognizing the needs of the workplace and the needs of the employee? Because in some cases they have kids at home, they have other thing, a spouse at home, perhaps some other thing that is requiring them to stay at home, and they resist going back to the office. So the employers are facing decisions that they've not had to face in the past. And those decisions are really what happens when we want everybody to come back to work on, say, September 1st, and you have a third of the workforce that says, I don't want to come back to work, I can do my work adequately from home. So companies are grappling with those issues. They want to be fair with the employees. Everybody is living through COVID-19 and its impact, but at the same time, they have a business to run and they have to be effective. So we've been giving a lot of advice on how to implement procedures in the workplace to create security for the workplace, and also to look back, because I'm trying to advise clients on what would this look like 2 years from now if in fact there was litigation, and litigation looks back to see what the employer did in order to provide a safe environment for the employees, and also a fair environment for the employees. Did you give them a good enough shot to come back? If you're leasing space from a building and the building is not doing enough to protect its environment, how do you deal with your landlord in that environment? So a lot of these issues, the number one issue is labor and employment. Second is cash flow. We've been dealing with clients who have had their good clients who have had ample cash flow and significant retained earnings. They have depleted those earnings over the last 3 months. And so they have to do planning for the future. How do they do it? Other than talking to somebody from HSBC and getting a loan, which is, of course, one of the things that I would encourage for the benefit of Kiyu and David. But they also need to be able to manage the future cash flow and how they're going to and accurately predict what their sales and what the environment is going to be. And some companies haven't done this. They've done it on more of a casual basis, especially if they're successful. There are efficient companies that run their operations like a train station, and they know exactly what's happening every hour. Other clients have not done that, and I've been encouraging them to increase their meeting flow and increase their marketing activities, because the marketing seems to be what has slipped to the wayside in terms of what they're doing. So my role as a lawyer is that I've ended up focusing more on what are you doing to market your services? What are you doing to stay in contact with your customers? What exactly are you doing that's out of the norm? Or what are you doing to generate new customers? What are you doing now to increase your sales? What are the markets? In other words, forcing more introspection for the clients. And the other challenges are the basic landlord-tenant questions. Do I have to pay my rent? If it's a landlord, I'm trying to force them to pay my rent. So depending upon whether I'm representing a large tenant let's say in a manufacturing plant, or the owner of the manufacturing plant, we're trying to restructure those past due rents and restructure the leasing arrangement. And it's a struggle because there's two sides. There's a landlord and a tenant, and they both look at their responsibilities under the lease differently. We also have situations where we have people that haven't been able to pay for supplies, and that's been one or an OEM, for example, that agreed to sell 1 million units a month here in the U.S., and they were supposed to sell 12 million units, and in the first 4 months of 2020, they have sold about 300,000 units total. So the OEM is demanding the performance under the contract, and we're fighting over that issue and trying to restructure it. So the key word, I think, Dennis, in conclusion, is restructuring. It's a restructuring of the employment relationship, a restructuring of the supply chain, a restructuring of the contractual relations with third parties. And I encourage that, and I always throw out the litigation word, and meaning that let's not litigate, let's resolve this, let's restructure in a manner that satisfies both sides. So those are basically the three areas that we have, let's say, the most activity right now.
All right, thanks, Malcolm. I think, our clients are definitely in the same boat. Hopefully non-Titanic. I think they're screaming for help. And, they really, the good old ways doesn't really help them anymore. So thanks for sharing that with us. And we're going to pass it on to David So mortgage for U.S. and non-resident aliens, as we all know that, for the NRA, non-resident aliens, they don't have the FICO score, they don't have a credit score. So how do you work it out, for your client who happens to be an NRA? David, please.
Thank you again, Dennis, for the introduction and the segue here. Let me pull up my screen so I can kind of share a little bit of details. So I just wanted to give, essentially this is going to be more of a brief overview because it's going to be difficult to get into a specific situational circumstance because everyone's situation is going to be different. So this is going to be more of a brief overview. And of course, I welcome any questions offline about specific scenarios that we can kind of dig in a little bit deeper on. But just a quick background and basis about HSBC. I'm assuming and hoping that everyone knows who we are, but we have a vast international reach, and that's more or less our primary focus. Is we want to help create and bridge that international connectivity between all different countries and the U.S. So we obviously have people who speak different languages and that can assist in different languages in all of our locations throughout the U.S. and around the world. We try to have that vast interconnectivity to help bridge the gap for people's needs, for anyone who's looking to purchase an investment property here in the U.S., purchase a vacation home here, or someone that's transitioning and just became a permanent resident, or obtained an EB-5 visa and is moving here to the U.S. on a permanent basis. That's something where we like to bridge the gap as well. So a little basis on the different products that we have to offer. Bear with me a second. For some reason, I am not able to. There we go. So the primary basis, I'll touch on the product-wise for US people first, and then we'll kind of dig in a little bit more for the non-resident purposes. For the US persons, we're going to obviously have the traditional conforming Fannie, Freddie Mae products that we're going to have available, and also home equity line of credits. Those two are really not going to apply to a non-resident, but would apply for a US person. So again, situationally, we would look at it, a lot of it's going to be based off of the credit history, obviously income and assets are all going to play into it, as well as the collateral or the appraisal, which is one of the key pieces of what we're going to be lending on. The main focus point is definitely going to be on the jumbo mortgages. That's our portfolio product. That is going to be the one that's going to be open to both US persons as well as the foreign national or non-resident alien pieces. So that's where we're going to have all of our specific, which Kiyu will kind of get into a little bit with the relationship aspect, but kind of going into the next slide is all of our different product offerings that we're going to have are going to be based off of relationship. For a non-resident alien, it would be someone that we would look that's going to have an advanced banking relationship with us at minimum, which would be a $10,000 banking relationship. And that's collectively throughout, let's say hypothetically they have the relationship in Hong Kong. That counts towards the relationship aspect. Obviously, we want to open up a relationship here in the US as well, so they can have that cross-border international connectivity, which obviously Kiyu will get into. She can answer, as she's a subject matter expert on that, can answer the international connectivity piece. And then also moving into our deluxe products, which is a premier client, someone that's going to have at minimum $75,000 banking relationship with HSBC. All of our pricing then is going to be tiered based off of the relationship that someone's going to have. So we have the pricing that would go from $10,000 relationship to $75,000 to $250,000 to $500,000 to $1 million, and then greater than $1 million. Once it's greater than $1 million, it moves into our elite, which is the absolute best rate offering that we're going to have. Obviously, because that's the clientele that we're, I hate to say the word catering, but tailoring towards, because they already have, or they're establishing that relationship with HSBC. And one quick piece is these loans are not intended or specifically for someone who has an existing relationship with HSBC. these are all new to bank clients. So this is, going out for, if it's someone that was referred by a relative that's purchasing here and has no connection with HSBC, we can look into that, and we can work through a process of onboarding a new relationship and facilitating with the financing needs from that aspect. So it doesn't have to be just an existing HSBC client in order for us to assist. Going into just a little piece on the NRA, or the non-resident or foreign national borrowing piece. Again, it's built towards our jumbo mortgage product, which is our portfolio product, which gives us that flexibility and fluidity to be able to offer mortgages to individuals who don't have income here in the US, who may not have all of their assets here in the US, who don't have credit history here, don't have a social security number. There's a lot of things that play into it that can determine who's considered a non-resident, who's not, and how we're going to treat the property, if it's going to be a primary residence or a vacation home or even an investment property. So a lot of the loan to value is going to be, for what we can lend to, is going to be based off of that property type and the individual's specific circumstances here in the US. And all the financing is available up to a $4 million loan amount. So there's a lot of flexibility into the amount that we can finance up to. So there's a lot of flexibility with what we can do. Obviously, again, our approach is, we have to do what's right for the customer and what's right for the bank as well. So there's a lot of due diligence that's involved with, verifying the income, verifying international credit, verifying the assets. So essentially, it's taking the same thing that we look for with a US person, but mirroring it towards an international client who perhaps doesn't have all the same documentation that we have here in the US. And one last piece that I see that's becoming a pretty big piece right now is because of the purchase market right now. A lot of people are moving to purchase a property all cash just because of the timing and to essentially get their offer accepted. So we have a cash out option for an all purchase, which we'll consider, which is a technical refinance. And we'll treat it as just a rate and term refinance. So it's not even considered as a cash out loan if we do it within the first 6 months of that all cash purchase. So with that aspect, it allows us, again, a lot of the flexibility for someone who might be in a time crunch where we might not be able to meet a really quick close of escrow, where they can then buy a property all cash, and then we can go back and revisit doing a refinance so they can get some of the cash back out from that all cash purchase so they can leverage themselves however they intended to, but were limited by the timing piece. But those are the quick overview topics that I kind of wanted to touch on. Obviously, it's difficult to kind of dive into specific scenarios because, like I said, every scenario is going to be different and treated differently. So, if there's questions about specific scenarios, absolutely be more than happy to help out. So feel free to either do the chat feature or email me. I'm readily available at all times, so more than happy to help out. But with that, I will send it back to you, Dennis, and I will hit the stop share.
All right. Hey, thanks, David, for sharing all those mortgage solutions that's being offered by HSBC, and also the cash out option is actually very interesting. So I'm going to move on to the last but not least speaker, Kiyu. So I know that HSBC is very flexible, and now, due to the current environment, they offer different propositions and offers out there right now to the individual and business clients, premier banking or private clients. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yes, thank you, Dennis. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I would like to share different HSBC banking propositions and offers with you. And everyone can access this information from HSBC website easily. So as you can see, shows different HSBC checking account, and you can see the different qualification on the right-hand side. We have HSBC Premier Checking, HSBC HSBC Advanced Checking, and we have our personal banking choice checking account, and we have a student checking offer, which is offering student free choice checking account for free for 6 years, meaning no monthly maintenance fee, and we have our basic account. So today I will mainly share more details of HSBC Premier account. So from this website, you can see all the information about a Premier Checking. Premier Checking is designed as a no fee, no hassle, and no borders account. No fee means that you get no fees on everyday banking transactions. You have no incoming or outgoing wire transfer fee. You have no foreign transaction fees on your Premier debit or credit card, and no HSBC ATM fees worldwide, and you get unlimited third-party ATM rebates within the States. No hassle means you have flexible eligibility criteria, making it easier to become a Premier client. So here, as you can see, there are 3 ways for you to qualify for Premier status. Either you can maintain $75,000 in your combined relationship, or you have a monthly direct deposit over $5,000, or you have a mortgage with us, original loan amount is over $500,000. Either way can make you qualify for Premier status. And you get a shared Premier status, which means you have the ability to extend your Premier status to up to 4 family members. Your family member could qualify for Premier status based on your Premier relationship with HSBC. And you can choose how, when, and where you want to do business with your Premier relationship manager. And no border. No borders means customer could get emergency cash of up to $10,000 or local currency equivalent at HSBC Premier centers and HSBC branches around the world should your wallet be lost or stolen. And you have global Premier status. We have a great benefit for Premier customer named Premier One, Premier All, which means as long as you have a Premier account in one country, you automatically qualify for Premier status in all countries where you bank with HSBC affiliates. And you have the global view and global transfer function. You can access your worldwide HSBC deposit account online and transfer funds between them for free. And let me share a couple exclusive offer with you. So we have this exclusive offer for opening a new HSBC Premier checking account at HSBC Costa Mesa branch. So first, open your account before September 30th and deposit a minimal qualifying balance of $75,000 or more in new money in combined accounts within 30 calendar days of account opening, and set up a direct deposit into a new HSBC Premier checking account for 2 consecutive calendar months, and you will be qualified for earning this $775 opening bonus. And we have another one for our HSBC Advanced Checking. Advanced checking account offer only requires you to set up a direct deposit with us. Opening your advanced account before September 30th, and you could enjoy 2% cashback on qualifying direct deposit into your new HSBC Advanced Checking account, up to $50 per month during the first 12 calendar months after account opening. And I have my branch location and my contact info attached at the bottom. Feel free to contact with me if you're interested in those offers.
All right, thank you. It's nice to know that you guys really have a very attractive offer of the bonus money, knowing that the interest rate on savings account now is 0.1% or something like that. It's pretty low, so it's great. So I know that we are a little bit overrun. So my job description as the moderator, also known as the gatekeeper, timekeeper, I'm going to do it very quickly. Thanks to all the panelists for sharing, the overview, the thoughts and ideas inside with us. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is the Hong Kong TDC video sharing. So let's do that. So again, thanks to Hong Kong Trade Development Council for sponsoring this webinar. We are going to move on to the Q&A section. And I strongly encourage, our audience to send in any questions to all the panelists or either specific one. We will always welcome any feedback or questions, especially for our panelists. So the good thing of being a moderator, I have the right and authority. I can ask any questions I like, and I can direct my questions to any one of the panelists. So I'm going to put Ralph under the gun now. So Ralph, as we all know, we do have quite a bit of tensions between the US and China/Hong Kong right now. So so what can you tell us a little bit business development opportunities under this kind of climate and environment? How does Hong Kong Trade Development Council is going to help us out to grow and to maintain our bottom line during this time of the year? Ralph, please.
Thank you, Dennis. That's a great question. In fact, more than 10 years ago, the TDC has been helping Hong Kong manufacturers to consider the China +1 or even China +2 strategies. That means apart from their manufacturing base in China, they have to consider another manufacturing facilities outside of China. And we had taken the Hong Kong manufacturers to Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam, Myanmar, Indonesia, and so on, to look for those manufacturing bases. So now, even under the US-China trade tension, the US buyers can still contact the Hong Kong suppliers, and they will be able to supply products that are manufactured outside of China. Apart from that, I think the greatest business opportunities in Hong Kong arise from the Greater Bay Area initiative. The Greater Bay Area concept is a combination of Hong Kong, Macau, and also 9 major cities in the Guangdong province. Their combined population is about 17 million. That is the size of Germany or the UK. So you can imagine that this market offers tremendous opportunities for the overseas suppliers. At the same time, the GDP is comparable to that of South Korea or Australia, about 1,500 billion US dollars. So again, a lot of the people there are middle-class income group people, so they have a good purchasing power. The greatest attraction of the Greater Bay Area is that you consider Hong Kong as a major financial center and also a very important business hub, just like New York. But then for New York, if you imagine you have Silicon Valley next to it, then its attraction will be even greater. And that is what Hong Kong has, because right next to Hong Kong is Shenzhen, which is regarded as the Silicon Valley of China. And if that is not enough, you can also imagine that next to New York, if you have Las Vegas, then the attraction will be even greater because that is an entertainment center. So what we have is Macau, which is only half an hour away by linking with Hong Kong with a Cross Harbour Bridge. The turnover of the casinos in Macau has already surpassed that of Las Vegas. So this is a very important entertainment center. Apart from the Silicon Valley and the entertainment center, we also have several other major cities which are manufacturing hubs in the Guangdong province, including Dongguan, Huizhou, Guangzhou, and so on. So with all these advantages and benefits, the opportunities that a Greater Bay Area initiative can offer to the overseas companies will be tremendous.
Thanks, Ralph. As a matter of fact, that when we are attending the Hong Kong Forum every year, Hong Kong Trade Development Council always very well organized side trip for us to all the Greater Bay Area cities. I know that we still have so many cities we like to visit, but every time when we go there, we are very impressed with all the growth and the opportunities among all the cities within the Greater Bay Area. So it's great to know that, even though, it has been tough, but still opportunities out there. So appreciate that, Ralph.
Yeah,
so, Malcolm, so I'm going to ask you some legal questions because you are a very reputable attorney. So as we know, the American Airlines just announced that they're going to lay off 175,000 employees. And I know that probably follows by United Airlines and all those things. So what are the legal implications, with all those layoffs? I'm sure that there are a lot of things that, is going to be, have some potential litigation, legal issues. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. That sort of goes back to the initial comments that I was making. This is one of the larger employment decisions that clients have to make. We recently represented a client that had over 1,000 employees and laid off 950. So what happens when you have these types of layoffs and when businesses cross the state lines, you have several different laws that collide in many cases. You have local regulations, for example, what we might expect here at LAX in terms of their contractual requirements for their carriers and other vendors at the airport. But then you have your state regulatory requirements, which you have to then comply with under the California Labor Code. And then you have your federal requirements, and the federal requirements are mandates that are given to certain industries like the airlines because they're considered they're a federally regulated entity, and the industry is federally regulated through the FAA. So, but what a lot of people don't realize is that there may also be foreign jurisdictional issues that you need to deal with because, for example, if American Airlines is landing in Paris or London or Munich, there are local labor regulations that would apply to the American Airlines employees, and you have to comply with them. So before American Airlines can engage in laying off the employees, I am sure that they have already had cross-border legal advice to determine whether or not the employees that are being laid off are deemed to be employees under the U.S. entity, or if they're deemed to be employees under the foreign jurisdiction where they might be working, for example, at a ticket desk or at an information booth or handling luggage or whatever else they may be doing. So it's complicated. You can't do it simply by deciding you're going to issue a pink slip to the employees, because by doing that, you'd subject yourself to not only penalties, but also punitive damages if some sort of a class action came down. So American Airlines I'm certain that they've gotten the appropriate cross-border advice, but for our smaller employers who are contemplating a layoff of employees, I advise them to, of course, make sure that you discuss the nature of the business, the jurisdictional boundaries that the business acts in, and then decide what we have to comply with before we start issuing termination notices to the employees. Also, it's a complicated thing because in order to avoid some litigation, you want to provide the appropriate employee packages, the severance packages. It also depends on the classes of employees. Are they part of C-suite that are going to be, or managers or others, or are they on the ground employees that are acting as the service employees for the airlines? As you know, there's also union requirements because there are strong unions that support the stewardesses, flight attendants, the the pilots. So all of that comes into play. And when you're trying to, so the starting point is to see if you have the resources to be able to allow for, let's say, adequate packages. They may not like them all, but at least to make sure that you don't create anger and hostility, which then leads to litigation in the future. So an analysis of the total 360 business of the company is important. Then you have to look at them in terms of classes of employees. Then you have to look at them in terms of any collective bargaining agreements. And then you get down to the regulatory framework that may be applying to that business. And that's sort of that's the top-down analysis that I do with clients.
Great. So as I mentioned that, you do have support services from the government sectors, TDC, and from your attorneys, from your bankers, and CPA. Absolutely. I'm sure that your team is really here to help you out. So thanks, Malcolm, for sharing that with us. So
Happy
David, I know that appraisal is always one of the important steps for the mortgage approval process. So can you tell us a little bit more, the current situation about appraisals, due to the current COVID pandemic? Does it really have any negative impacts on it? And can you share with us?
Sure, that's a great question, Dennis. Thanks for asking that. Right now with COVID, appraisals are absolutely affected. We're not seeing a lot of interior inspections done, which could eventually impact the value of a property, because the appraiser is solely using outside comparable recently sold comps to base the value on without knowing the true interior of the property. So there is a little connection there where it could become a little interesting, for lack of better words. However, if it's something where it warrants an interior inspection, where someone has done upgrades to the interior recently, that's something where we can do as a one-off and use that as a support. Obviously, all safety measures are always taken into place whenever we have an appraiser, which is a third-party vendor going into a property. So we make sure that social distancing is in place, and masks are always required, and it's a very specific procedure that they follow. But for the most part, everything is now done by drive-by appraisals, which can have a bearing effect on the outcome. I haven't seen too many effects from it negatively, because the market and the recently sold comps are still supportive of purchase prices, but it is something to be aware about and cognizant that it could affect values potentially in the future if things continue on this path.
I see. So cross our fingers, hopefully, it's not going to have too much negative impact on the appraisal. So my apology that I'm going to limit only one questions to each panelist because of the time constraint. So Ki Yu, I have a questions. Actually, it's also similar questions from the audience about the international banking. So like for example, how do we open up a foreign bank accounts? What's the process of how it works? It looks like that it's getting a little bit tougher to open up any foreign bank accounts due to the tax law and all those rules. So can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. Thank you, Dennis. This is the question I get asked by customers on a daily basis. Especially here in California, we have a lot of customers who have international banking needs. And during the pandemic, customers couldn't really travel around the world to set up in foreign countries. So let's say if a customer would like to open a Hong Kong account, let's say. So we can refer them to our international banking center who can help customers set a foreign account remotely over the phone. But they will require customer to have a US HSBC account first. They will need to, based on their relationship, for them to set a foreign account. And they will have an official phone interview with the customer about 1 hour, gather all the information they need over the phone, and eventually they will send the foreign account application to a local branch, have customer to visit us, sign the paperwork in front of a branch employee so we can certify the document and ID. we see customer in person. But the whole signing process will be only take, I would say, within 5 minutes. And after customers set up the both account, they could do the online banking registration for the US HSBC account and the Hong Kong HSBC account. And through our global view function, customer can link those two accounts on one online banking page. And going forward, they can easily move money between countries, like from their online banking or even mobile banking instantly. So it's very convenient for customers who have the international banking needs.
Right. It's great to know that. I know HSBC is always very innovative and flexible and coming up with solutions that will help your clients to manage their businesses and accounts, effectively and efficiently. So thanks to every one of you. And I'm going to, again, wear the other hat because I'm serving as a Executive Vice President of the Hong Kong Association. So this is my job descriptions. We do have a special today for the new member and existing member. If you are renewing it or you are, applying for a new membership by 11:59 p.m. tonight, you will get buy one, get one free. So you pay $40, it's going to be not good for 1 year, it's good for 2 years. So it's $20 per year. If you're corporate membership, you get $200 for 2 years. So it's $100 per year. So it's a great deal. So actually it's valid until September 30th. So we do have upcoming events. As you can see, I'm not going to go over one by one because we're running a little bit overrun. But please feel free to join us. We're going to organize more webinars in the coming months. And I hope you like what you see. You have any questions, anything, let us know. Again, on behalf of the Hong Kong Association of Southern California, our sincere thanks to Ralph, Malcolm, David, and Kiyu for really joining us this morning. Now is noontime. Hopefully every one of you have a great experience, and also our audience that get to know the shadow and what are the solutions and also support services from the banks and from the attorneys, from the CPA, and also from Hong Kong Trade Development Council and Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office. So on behalf of Hong Kong Association, thanks again for joining us. We hope to see you again. So see you soon. Take care, everyone. Be safe and healthy.
Bye-bye, Dennis. Thank you all.
Okay,
Dennis.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kenan.